It was supposed to be just another ordinary day for Amina, a struggling African woman trying to make ends meet. But fate had other plans when she mistakenly entered the car of a powerful Arab executive, Khalid al-Farsi. Little did she know, this moment would change both their lives forever. Amina's heart raced as she rushed down the busy streets of the city, the evening sky already turning a deep shade of purple. The last bus had just left, and her phone had run out of battery. She could hardly afford a taxi, and the thought of walking the long distance back home in the dark filled her with dread. In a moment of desperation, she spotted a sleek, black car parked by the curb. The door was slightly ajar, and before she could think, she slipped inside, assuming it was a rideshare service. But as she settled into the backseat, the air inside the car felt too still, too expensive. The scent of fine leather and cologne filled her senses, and she felt a wave of unease wash over her. Suddenly, a voice from the front seat spoke, startling her. "Where to?" Amina froze. She hadn't expected anyone to be in the car, let alone the man sitting in the driver's seat. He was well dressed in a sharp suit, his dark eyes piercing through the rearview mirror. "I'm sorry, I thought this was a taxi," she stammered, her face flushing with embarrassment. The man chuckled, the sound rich and deep, like smooth velvet. "It's all right, but now that you're here, I can give you a ride." Amina didn't know what to say. Her fingers fidgeted in her lap, her nerves on edge as she wondered if she should get out. But before she could make a decision, the man started the car, smoothly driving off into the bustling city streets. As the car sped through the traffic, Amina's thoughts were a whirlwind. She couldn't believe she had made such a mistake. But there was something about this man, his calm demeanor, the confidence in the way he handled the wheel, that kept her from panicking. "So, what's your name?" the man asked, his voice breaking through her anxious thoughts. "Amina," she replied quietly, still feeling out of place in the plush leather seat. "Amina," he repeated, testing the name on his tongue. "I'm Khalid al-Farsi." "Al-Farsi?" she echoed, unsure if she recognized the name. But then, she remembered, Khalid al-Farsi was the CEO of Al-Farsi Enterprises, one of the wealthiest companies in the region. His face was all over the news, in magazines, and even on billboards. "Wait," Amina said, her voice trembling now, "you're him? The CEO?" Khalid's lips curled into a slight, almost imperceptible smile. "The very same." Amina's stomach dropped. She was sitting in the car with a man who could buy her entire neighborhood without blinking. Her thoughts raced. What was he doing here, driving himself? Was this really happening? "Don't worry," Khalid said, his voice strangely comforting. "I'm not going to bite. Just tell me where you need to go." The ride was quiet after that, with Amina still in shock from the revelation. Khalid was an enigma, so distant, yet strangely warm. Amina tried to shake off her nerves, focusing on the streetlights as they blurred past the window. She didn't know what possessed her to speak, but she found herself telling Khalid about her struggles, about the long hours working at a local cafe, barely making enough to pay her rent, about the dreams of a better life she couldn't seem to reach. Khalid listened, his gaze never leaving the road ahead, but his silence spoke volumes. "I'm sorry you're going through that," he said softly. "But you're not alone. You can always make a change, Amina." Her eyes met his in the rearview mirror, and she saw a flicker of something, a vulnerability she hadn't expected from a man like him. They arrived at her apartment building soon after, and Amina's heart clenched. This was it. She was just another nobody to him, someone he'd forget the moment she stepped out of the car. But Khalid surprised her. "Why don't you join me for dinner?" he asked, as the car came to a smooth stop in front of her building. Amina hesitated. It was the last thing she expected, but something in his eyes made her want to say yes. Khalid led Amina into a private, exclusive restaurant, a place she never dreamed she'd step foot into. The waiters greeted him with respectful nods, and the maitre d' escorted them to a secluded corner. The restaurant was luxurious, with soft golden lighting and crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. As they sat down, Amina couldn't help but feel out of place. She tugged at the sleeve of her worn jacket, wondering why she hadn't just gone home. But Khalid didn't seem to care. He ordered food for both of them, and they started talking, about life, about their differences, and surprisingly, about their similarities. Khalid was nothing like she'd imagined. Yes, he was wealthy, but he didn't seem interested in flaunting it. His words were genuine, his laugh soft and unpretentious. Amina started to relax, realizing that she'd misjudged him at first. The night stretched on, filled with conversation, laughter, and the kind of connection she never thought possible. She found herself opening up to him in a way she hadn't done with anyone in years. And when the evening came to an end, Khalid surprised her again. "I don't want this night to end," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. Amina's heart fluttered. Was this really happening? Was this man really interested in her? Before she could answer, Khalid reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. "Amina, I know this is sudden, but I'd like to get to know you better. Will you let me?" She looked into his eyes, seeing something there, a sincerity, a warmth that made her believe in this strange, sudden connection. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'll let you." Over the following weeks, Amina and Khalid's bond grew stronger. Their worlds, once so far apart, began to merge in ways Amina never could have predicted. But as they spent more time together, their relationship faced obstacles. Khalid's high-profile life brought attention they both hadn't anticipated. Whispers began to spread about the rich Arab executive and the poor African woman by his side. People from both their worlds began to question their choices, their motives. As Khalid and Amina's relationship blossomed, they were forced to navigate the complexities of their differences. Khalid's business empire came with a constant barrage of media attention, and rumors about his relationship with a woman from a modest background began to spread. The gossip didn't just affect him, it affected Amina too. She felt the sting of judgment from her peers, whispers behind her back, and the disapproval in her family's eyes. One evening, while they were dining in a quiet restaurant, Amina's phone buzzed incessantly with messages. She glanced at the screen, seeing her friends' names lighting up. Her heart sank as she saw the headlines of the latest gossip. Arab executive's secret love affair with unknown African woman. Amina couldn't help but feel exposed. She put the phone down, trying to maintain her composure, but Khalid noticed the tension in her. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice gentle but concerned. She sighed, a mixture of frustration and sadness in her eyes. "I didn't sign up for this. I knew people would talk, but I didn't expect it to feel this real. My friends, they're calling me crazy. They don't understand how this could work." Khalid reached across the table and gently took her hand, his touch firm but reassuring. "I know it's not easy, Amina, but I'm here for you. I don't care what the world thinks. I want to be with you." Amina's heart fluttered, and for the first time, she allowed herself to fully trust in Khalid's words. She had spent so long protecting herself, but something in Khalid's eyes told her he was different. He wasn't like the men who had broken her trust in the past. "I want to be with you too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But as they walked hand in hand through the challenges of their relationship, fate had other plans. Amina's past came back to haunt her in the form of an old acquaintance, Samuel, a man who had once been a part of her life. Samuel had always been protective of Amina, but their relationship had ended when he betrayed her trust. He resurfaced unexpectedly, hoping to rekindle their old friendship, or maybe something more. One afternoon, as Amina was leaving work, she ran into him outside the cafe. He looked the same as she remembered, tall, confident, with the same charismatic smile that had once made her heart race. "Amina, it's been so long," Samuel said, his voice dripping with charm. "I've missed you." Amina stiffened, trying to keep her distance. "I'm not the same person I was, Samuel. Things have changed." Samuel's eyes flickered with recognition, but he didn't back down. "I know you've moved on, but there's still something between us. I can feel it." Amina took a step back, her instincts telling her to be cautious. But before she could respond, she felt a presence behind her. She turned around and saw Khalid standing there, his face unreadable. "Is this your friend?" Khalid asked, his tone calm, but Amina could sense the underlying tension. Amina hesitated before answering. "Yes, but it's complicated." Khalid looked at Samuel, his gaze hardening. "I don't appreciate anyone trying to come between us, especially not after everything we've been through." Samuel chuckled, but there was a coldness in his eyes. "Don't worry, Khalid, I'm not here to compete. I just want to remind Amina of what we had." The confrontation between Khalid and Samuel only intensified Amina's feelings of unease. Though she cared for Khalid, the presence of her past stirred emotions she hadn't dealt with. She knew that Samuel was trying to manipulate the situation, trying to make her feel conflicted, but she couldn't help but wonder if she was making a mistake by being with Khalid. That evening, as they sat in Khalid's penthouse, the tension between them was palpable. Amina fidgeted with her hands, unsure how to navigate the situation. She could see the hurt in Khalid's eyes, and it broke her heart. But she also felt torn. She couldn't escape her past, and she didn't know if she was ready to let go of everything she had known for the uncertain future with Khalid. Khalid watched her silently for a long moment before speaking, his voice soft but firm. Amina, I know it's not easy, but I'm not going anywhere. I want you in my life. I want to build something real with you, something lasting. Amina looked at him, the sincerity in his eyes undeniable. But doubt lingered in her mind. Khalid, I don't want to hurt you. I'm not sure I can be the woman you need me to be. My past, everything I've gone through, it's not something I can just forget. Khalid reached out and gently cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. You don't need to forget, Amina. I'm not asking you to erase your past. I just want to be there for you, no matter what. Days passed, and the tension between Amina and Khalid continued to build. As much as Amina tried to keep her feelings hidden, the uncertainty in her heart only grew. She wanted to believe that Khalid's words were true, that they could overcome their differences. But the pressure of their worlds colliding felt like too much to bear. One evening, as she was walking home from work, she received a phone call from Khalid. His voice was filled with concern. Amina, I need to talk to you. There's something I need to tell you. Amina's heart skipped a beat. What's wrong? It's about my family. They're not happy about us being together. Amina's stomach churned. She had expected some form of opposition, but hearing it from Khalid made it all the more real. His family had power, influence, and expectations. She wondered how much their disapproval would affect their future. Khalid's words hung in the air between them like a heavy cloud. Amina felt her chest tighten, her breath catching in her throat. She had known that their relationship wasn't going to be simple, but the thought of Khalid's family standing in the way of their love was something she hadn't prepared for. They don't understand, Amina, Khalid continued, his voice thick with frustration. I've tried to explain, but they see you as a distraction. They think I'm making a mistake. Amina felt a pang in her heart, a bitter taste of reality sinking in. She had never imagined being with someone like Khalid would come with so many obstacles. She had hoped they could build something strong and meaningful, but now it seemed like the weight of his family's expectations was a wall too high to scale. What do you want me to do? Amina's voice cracked, the uncertainty evident. You can't just keep fighting for me against your family. They're too powerful. Khalid was silent for a moment, the tension thick in the air. Then, he said something that made Amina's heart race. I want you to marry me. Her breath caught in her throat. What? I want you to be my wife, Amina, Khalid repeated, his eyes intense. I'm willing to face everything, my family, my reputation. I'll fight for us. I don't care about anything else. All I care about is you. Amina's pulse quickened, the weight of his words crashed down on her, and she couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. He was offering her a way out of this endless struggle, a chance to stand by his side as more than just his lover. He wanted to make her a part of his world, to give her a place in it forever. But I'm not from your world, Khalid. I'm not enough for you. Khalid reached across the table, his hand steady and warm as it cupped her face, gently pulling her gaze to his. Amina, you are everything to me. You don't need to be anything other than yourself. I love you for who you are. The words seemed to fill the space between them, and Amina felt the walls around her heart slowly begin to crumble. She had always feared that love wasn't enough, that her past would hold her back, but Khalid's unwavering confidence in their bond made her believe otherwise. With a deep breath, she nodded, her voice soft but sure. Yes, I'll marry you. Khalid's face lit up with a smile, and in that moment, Amina knew that no matter the challenges ahead, they would face them together. The weight of their differences and the obstacles in their way seemed insignificant in the face of the love they had built, one that had started with an accidental meeting but would last a lifetime. The decision to marry Khalid had been sudden, overwhelming, but in her heart, Amina knew it was the right choice. The whirlwind of emotions she had felt from the moment they met seemed to be guiding her toward this inevitable outcome. But as the days passed, reality began to settle in. Their engagement wasn't just about love, it was about defying expectations, about overcoming the weight of judgment from both their families and the world. Amina could feel the eyes of the city on them, whispers following their every step. Despite Khalid's insistence that he didn't care about the opinions of others, Amina couldn't help but feel the pressure building. The media had caught wind of their relationship, and soon, photos of them appeared in the tabloids, splashed across the covers of gossip magazines. Headlines like, Arab executive's scandalous engagement to unknown African woman, were hard to ignore. Khalid, ever the professional, handled the media with his usual calm demeanor, but Amina could see the stress weighing on him. The last thing he wanted was for their personal lives to be fodder for the world's curiosity. But no matter how hard they tried to keep things private, Their love story was unfolding in the spotlight. One afternoon, as they walked out of Khalid's office, a group of reporters surrounded them, thrusting microphones in their faces, asking invasive questions. Amina's hands trembled at her sides, and her heart raced as the cameras flashed. "Is it true that you're marrying a poor woman from Africa, Khalid?" one reporter shouted. "How does your family feel about this?" Khalid placed a protective arm around Amina, stepping in front of her. "That's enough," he said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "We're not here to entertain your questions. This is our private life." But the questions didn't stop. Amina could feel the eyes of the public judging her, wondering if she was just another gold digger trying to land a wealthy man. Despite Khalid's efforts to shield her, she couldn't help but feel vulnerable. The weight of the world felt too heavy on her shoulders. As they reached the car, Amina stopped, her face flushed with frustration and tears that threatened to spill. "I can't do this, Khalid," she said, her voice cracking. "I never wanted this kind of attention. I'm not prepared for the spotlight, for the judgment, for the constant scrutiny." Khalid turned to her, his eyes softening with understanding. "Amina, I know this is hard. But I won't let them take this from us. I won't let anyone make you feel less than you are. You're my fiancé, and that means more to me than anything else." Amina shook her head, the weight of his words heavy on her heart. "I'm scared, Khalid, scared that I'll never fit in with your world. Scared that I'm not enough." Khalid reached for her hand, holding it tightly. "You are enough, Amina. You always have been. We'll face this together. And no matter what happens, I'm here." Amina looked into his eyes, seeing the depth of his sincerity, the unwavering commitment in his gaze. For the first time, the weight she had carried in her heart began to lighten. She wasn't alone in this battle. And maybe, just maybe, love could be enough to conquer everything standing in their way. The days after their confrontation with the media were tense, but Khalid's reassurance was a constant presence in Amina's life. He made every effort to shield her from the prying eyes of the world, arranging private moments for them to reconnect away from the public scrutiny. Yet, despite his efforts, Amina couldn't escape the feeling of being trapped in a fishbowl. Everywhere she went, she felt eyes on her, whispers following in her wake. One afternoon, Khalid suggested they take a weekend getaway. It had been a long while since they had spent time together without the pressure of their public life. Amina agreed, grateful for the opportunity to escape, even if just for a few days. They arrived at a quiet seaside villa, nestled in a remote corner of the country, far from the hustle and bustle of the city. The air was different here, fresher, cleaner. The sound of waves crashing against the shore seemed to drown out the noise that had been clouding Amina's thoughts. As they settled into the villa, Amina felt a sense of relief wash over her. It was just the two of them, surrounded by nothing but nature. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Khalid and Amina sat on the villa's deck, a glass of wine in hand. The peaceful atmosphere was a welcome change from the constant tension of their city lives. Khalid broke the silence. "I've been thinking about what you said the other day, about being scared and feeling out of place in my world." Amina turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "I don't know if I'm cut out for it, Khalid. I'm not like the women in your circle. I don't belong there. I'm just me." Khalid reached out, gently cupping her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Amina, you're more than enough. I don't care about the world that surrounds me. I care about you, who you are, and who you make me want to be." Her heart fluttered at his words, but the doubt still lingered. She had come to realize that being with Khalid wasn't just about love, it was about sacrifice. She had to learn to navigate a world that was unfamiliar to her, a world that demanded appearances and expectations she wasn't sure she could meet. "I know this isn't easy," Khalid continued, his voice softer now. "But I want to be with you. And I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you never feel out of place again." Amina's eyes welled with tears at his unwavering support. She didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, with Khalid by her side, she felt a flicker of hope. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel so alone. She didn't feel like she had to carry the weight of the world by herself. But as they sat in the quiet of the night, an unfamiliar thought crept into Amina's mind. She had spent so much of her life trying to protect herself from the world, from the heartbreak and the judgment, but now she was faced with something entirely different. A love that was so pure, so strong, that it was beginning to unravel all the walls she had built around herself. Could she let herself trust again? Could she believe that love was enough to bridge the gap between their worlds? As the weekend passed, Amina found herself drawn closer to Khalid in ways she hadn't anticipated. The calmness of the seaside, The privacy of the villa allowed her to see a side of Khalid that the public had never shown her. He was attentive, thoughtful, and so completely unlike the hard-edged businessman she had once assumed him to be. The more she saw of him, the more she realized that this connection between them, this love, was something real, something worth fighting for. However, as much as Khalid reassured her, Amina couldn't ignore the doubts gnawing at her. What if she wasn't strong enough to face the pressures of their differing worlds? She wasn't used to living under the scrutiny of the rich and powerful, and every time she thought about it, the weight of her insecurities threatened to pull her back. It was on their final night at the villa, as they walked along the beach under the blanket of a starry sky, that Khalid once again broke the silence. "Tell me what you're thinking, Amina," he said, his voice soft, but there was an intensity in his eyes. "I know you're holding back, and I want you to know that I'm here, no matter what. We're in this together, okay?" Amina stopped walking and turned to face him, the cool night breeze tugging at her hair. She wanted to let him in, to be open and vulnerable with him, but the fear inside her was still too strong. "I don't know if I'm enough for you, Khalid," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I come from nothing compared to you. You're used to a world where people have expectations of you, where your family has plans for your future. And then there's me, just a woman with a past full of mistakes and struggles. I don't know how to fit into your world, and I'm scared I'm just a distraction for you." Khalid's gaze softened, and he stepped closer, closing the space between them. "Amina, listen to me. I'm not asking you to be anyone but yourself. You're not a distraction to me. You're the one person who has made me feel something real, something I've never felt before. What I feel for you is not about what you have or what you don't have. It's about who you are. I'm not interested in your past mistakes, because I'm here to build a future with you." Amina's heart raced as his words hit her like a wave, washing away some of the fear that had built up inside her. She hadn't realized how badly she needed to hear those words, how deeply she had been craving reassurance that this love was real and worth it. "But the pressure, Khalid," she whispered, her eyes searching his. "I don't know if I can handle it. I don't know if I'm ready for your family, your world." Khalid reached out and took her hands in his, holding them tightly. "We'll take it one step at a time. And we'll do it together. You and me, Amina. We'll face whatever comes, side by side." For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Amina stared into Khalid's eyes, seeing the depth of his sincerity, the unwavering commitment he had to their relationship. There was no doubt in her mind that he truly meant it, that he would stand by her through everything. Her lips parted as she took a deep breath, making a decision. "I'll try, Khalid. I'll try to trust you. I want to be with you. But it won't be easy." Khalid smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. "I know, but I'm not going anywhere." The promise in his words hung between them as the sound of the waves crashing on the shore provided a peaceful soundtrack to their moment. Amina could feel the weight of her fears lifting, replaced by the warmth of his presence. As they stood there, hand in hand, Amina realized that maybe, just maybe, love could be enough. It wouldn't be easy. They would face challenges, and there would be obstacles, but they could face them together. With Khalid by her side, she finally began to believe that their love could withstand whatever the world threw their way. The days following their time at the villa were filled with a sense of quiet determination. Amina returned to her routine, but her thoughts were consumed by Khalid. She couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change for both of them. The pressure of their family's expectations and the eyes of the world were closing in, but for the first time, Amina felt a sense of readiness to face it. Khalid had made it clear that he was willing to fight for their relationship, but Amina knew that her commitment to him was just as crucial. She couldn't let fear control her anymore. She couldn't let her insecurities dictate the course of her life. That was why, when Khalid invited her to a dinner with his family, she couldn't say no. It was a big step, one that she hadn't felt ready for just a few weeks ago, but she knew it was time. She had to confront the world that seemed so foreign to her, Khalid's world, and make her place in it, not as an outsider, but as someone who was worthy of the man she loved. The evening of the dinner arrived, and Amina stood before the full-length mirror in her modest apartment, adjusting her dress. It was nothing fancy, just a simple, elegant black dress, but it felt like the most important outfit she would ever wear. She could already feel the weight of judgment, the scrutiny from Khalid's family. Her phone buzzed just as she was fixing her earrings. It was a message from Khalid. "Don't worry, Amina. You're perfect just as you are. I'm with you, every step of the way. I'll be there to pick you up in 15. Amina took a deep breath, her heart steadying at his words. Khalid's support was the anchor she needed to face the evening ahead. She wasn't alone, and that made all the difference. When Khalid arrived, looking as impeccable as ever in his tailored suit, he took one look at her and smiled. It was the kind of smile that made her heart skip a beat, a smile that told her, without words, that he was proud to have her by his side. "You look stunning," he said, his voice filled with admiration. Amina's cheeks flushed at the compliment. "Thank you," she replied softly, feeling the warmth of his gaze. They left her apartment and made their way to the Al-Farsi estate, a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of the city. As the car pulled up to the grand entrance, Amina felt her stomach flip. The estate was nothing like the small, humble apartment she called home. Everything about it screamed wealth and power, something she hadn't been a part of before. "Are you ready?" Khalid asked as the car stopped, his hand finding hers. Amina nodded, her grip tightening around his. "I think so." Together, they walked up the grand staircase, and as the door opened, Amina was greeted by the cold, assessing gaze of Khalid's family. His parents, elegant and poised, stood by the doorway, watching them enter. There was a certain formality in the air, a tension that Amina could feel in her bones. Khalid's father, a tall, imposing figure, gave a small nod of acknowledgement, but there was no warmth in his eyes. His mother, a woman with sharp features and an air of quiet authority, gave Amina a cursory glance before turning her attention back to Khalid. "Khalid, you've brought a guest," his mother said coolly. "I trust she's presentable." Amina stiffened at the cold reception, but Khalid squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Mother, father, this is Amina," he said, his voice steady but firm. "She's the woman I'm going to marry." The room fell into an uneasy silence. Amina's heart pounded in her chest, and she could feel the weight of their judgment bearing down on her. She had never felt so out of place in her life. But Khalid stood beside her, unwavering. His support was the anchor she needed. His mother raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" she said, her tone laced with skepticism. "And you've considered the consequences of this, Khalid? Our family's reputation is built on much more than this." Khalid's jaw tightened, but he remained calm. "I've considered everything. Amina is the woman I love, and nothing will change that." The tension in the room grew thicker, but Amina held her ground. She met Khalid's mother's gaze, refusing to back down. She wasn't going to let them intimidate her. She wasn't going to let their judgment define her. "I may not come from the same world as you," Amina said, her voice steady despite the nerves twisting in her stomach. "But I love your son, and that's all that matters to me." The words seemed to hang in the air, and for a moment, there was silence. Then Khalid's mother, to Amina's surprise, nodded, though her expression remained unreadable. "Very well," she said, her voice softer. "We will see how this plays out." Khalid stepped closer to Amina, wrapping an arm around her waist in a protective gesture. "We'll handle this, together," he whispered, his words a comfort in the face of everything that was happening around them. The dinner progressed with a sense of tension in the air that Amina couldn't shake. The conversation was polite, almost strained, with Khalid's parents maintaining a formal distance. They asked her questions about her background, her upbringing, and her career. Amina answered each one carefully, trying to navigate the fine line between being truthful and not revealing too much. She wasn't used to being scrutinized this way. Everything she said seemed to be measured, weighed, as though she were a subject under a microscope. Khalid, however, never let go of her hand, offering little reassuring glances throughout the evening. It was clear to Amina that he was trying his best to ease the tension, but she could sense the disappointment in his parents' eyes. It was as if they were waiting for her to falter, to show that she wasn't worthy of being in their world. But Amina didn't falter. She held her ground, even though the weight of their expectations bore heavily on her. She wasn't there to prove herself to them. She was there because she loved Khalid, and he loved her. As dessert was served, the conversation finally shifted to lighter topics. Khalid's younger sister, Layla, who had been quiet throughout most of the evening, suddenly spoke up, her voice filled with warmth. "Amina, how did you and Khalid meet?" Layla asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. Amina turned to Khalid, who gave her an encouraging smile. She took a deep breath, grateful for a chance to tell her story. "It was an accident," Amina said, her voice soft but steady. "I got into his car by mistake one evening, thinking it was a rideshare. We talked, and over time, we got to know each other." Layla's lips curled into a playful smile. "A car accident, huh? Sounds like something out of a romance novel." Amina laughed nervously, the tension easing slightly. "It wasn't quite as dramatic as that. But yes, I guess you could say it was fate." The moment of levity seemed to ease the atmosphere just a bit. Layla leaned in, her curiosity piqued. So, what's it like being with Khalid? He's so intense. Amina smiled, glancing at Khalid with affection. Khalid is intense, yes. But he's also kind, caring, and patient. He makes me feel safe, even when everything around us is chaotic. Khalid squeezed her hand under the table, his gaze softening as their eyes met. In that moment, Amina felt a sense of peace wash over her. The judgment from his parents, the unspoken disapproval, it all seemed less important when she was with him. They could face anything together. But the evening was far from over, and the tension between Amina and Khalid's family still lingered in the air. As dessert plates were cleared, Khalid's father stood, his gaze serious as he addressed the table. Khalid, I need to speak with you privately, his father said, his tone final. Amina tensed, her hand instinctively tightening around Khalid's. He looked at her, his expression unreadable, then stood up. Of course, father. Excuse me for a moment. As Khalid walked away with his father, Amina was left at the table with his mother and sister. The silence in the room felt heavy, and Amina couldn't help but wonder what was being discussed. Was it about her? Was Khalid's father going to convince him to call off the engagement? Layla, noticing Amina's unease, leaned closer. Don't worry too much, she said quietly. My father can be a bit overbearing. But he cares about Khalid, and he'll come around. He just doesn't like change. Amina nodded, trying to reassure herself. She wanted to believe Layla's words, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. She had never felt so out of place, so far removed from the world that Khalid belonged to. But she was here now, and she wasn't going to let the expectations of others define her or her future with Khalid. A few minutes later, Khalid returned, his father trailing behind him. The moment they sat down, Khalid's father cleared his throat and addressed the table. I've spoken with Khalid, and I've made it clear that I don't agree with his choice, he said, his voice firm. But I also understand that it's not my decision to make. Amina's heart skipped a beat, unsure of what was coming next. I don't fully understand why Khalid has chosen you, Amina, his father continued, but I can see that he's made up his mind. And as much as it pains me, I will respect his decision. Amina couldn't believe what she was hearing. His father had essentially given his blessing, albeit reluctantly, and Amina felt a wave of relief wash over her. She wasn't sure what had shifted in him, but something had. Perhaps it was the realization that no matter how much he disagreed, Khalid was going to marry her. Khalid's father stood again, this time with a slightly softer expression. I still have my reservations, Amina, he said, his tone less cold than before. But if you're the one my son wants, then I will. Try to accept it. For his sake, Amina nodded, grateful but still uncertain. This was only the beginning. She knew there would be more challenges ahead. There always were when two people from such different worlds tried to come together. But with Khalid by her side, she felt like they could face anything. The evening ended with a quiet tension, but something had shifted in Khalid's family dynamic. Amina could feel it in the air, the subtle but important acknowledgement from Khalid's father. It wasn't the wholehearted acceptance she had hoped for, but it was a step forward. His father's approval, however reluctant, felt like a small victory, and it was enough to keep her grounded. Khalid had stood by her when it mattered most, and now, she needed to do the same for him. As they left the Al-Farsi estate, the cool night air greeted them. Khalid took Amina's hand as they walked toward the car, his touch reassuring and warm. Well, that went better than I expected, Amina said, trying to keep the mood light as they reached the car. Khalid smiled faintly, his hand still holding hers. It wasn't perfect, but we're getting there. Amina didn't know what it was about the night that had made her feel stronger. Perhaps it was the realization that Khalid was in this with her, that they had faced one of their greatest challenges together. No matter what happened next, they were a team. She was no longer an outsider in his world, not entirely. She had a place in it, even if it was still being carved out. The drive back to her apartment was quiet, the city lights flickering past the windows. Amina's thoughts drifted, but Khalid's steady presence beside her anchored her. She had never thought she would be in this position, never imagined herself in the life she was building with him. And yet, here she was, on the cusp of becoming his wife. When they arrived at her apartment building, Khalid stopped the car but didn't immediately get out. Instead, he turned to her, his gaze intense. Amina, he said, his voice low, I know tonight wasn't easy for you. It wasn't easy for me either. But I want you to know something. Amina's heart fluttered. What? I love you, and no matter how difficult things get, I'm not going anywhere. You're the one I want. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about the future I see with you. Amina's breath caught in her throat. His words were exactly what she needed to hear. She knew their relationship would face many more trials, but in that moment, nothing seemed impossible. With Khalid by her side, the world felt a little less daunting. I love you, too, she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. And I'm willing to fight for us. Khalid leaned in, pressing his lips to hers in a kiss that was soft but full of meaning. It wasn't just a kiss between lovers, it was a promise. A promise that they would face whatever came their way together, no matter how hard it might be. When they pulled away, he gently cupped her face in his hands. I'm proud of you, Amina. You've been so strong. I don't know what I would have done without you. Amina smiled, feeling the weight of her doubts lift a little. You don't have to do anything alone, Khalid. We're in this together. He nodded, his expression softening. I'm glad you're here with me. With a final kiss, Khalid reluctantly stepped out of the car, but before he closed the door, he turned to Amina one last time. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? We'll figure this out, step by step. Amina nodded, watching as he walked into the night. She stayed in the car for a moment longer, letting the silence of the evening settle around her. For the first time, she felt truly at peace. She wasn't just a woman from a different world anymore, she was Khalid's fiancée. And that was enough for her to hold on to, for now. The following week passed in a blur of meetings, calls, and fleeting moments between Amina and Khalid. The weight of their engagement became more real as they started making plans for the future, preparing for the wedding, meeting with wedding planners, and facing the scrutiny of both their worlds. But despite the whirlwind, Amina felt a sense of calm that she hadn't expected. The uncertainty that had once filled her heart seemed to fade whenever she was with Khalid. He was her anchor, and she knew that together, they could handle whatever came their way. One afternoon, Khalid invited her to his office. The Al Farsi Enterprises building was sleek and modern, the walls lined with glass windows that provided an impressive view of the city. As Amina stepped into his office, she felt a mixture of awe and trepidation. She had been to his home, but seeing him in his professional environment was different. This was where he ruled his empire, where the man she loved transformed into a powerful executive. Khalid looked up from his desk as she entered, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. Hey, you're here. Amina smiled, the warmth in his gaze easing the nerves that had started to creep in. I thought I'd stop by and see you at work. He rose from behind his desk, walking over to her with a playful grin. I'm glad you did. It's been a hectic week, and it's nice to see a friendly face. Amina chuckled, but the reality of the situation hit her again. She had to adapt to his world, to be part of it. The thought made her nervous, but as Khalid took her hand and led her to the sitting area in his office, she realized that he had never asked her to change who she was. He wanted her by his side, just as she was. I wanted to talk about the wedding, Khalid said as they sat down. We've been so caught up in everything else that we haven't had much time to focus on it. Amina nodded. I know, I've been feeling the pressure of everything, but I think it's time to make some decisions. We can't keep putting it off. Khalid leaned back in his chair, his fingers resting lightly on the armrest. I want this to be perfect for you, Amina. I want you to feel comfortable and happy with everything we plan. This is our day. Amina felt her heart swell at his words. I just want it to be simple, Khalid. Something that's just about us, not the spectacle or the expectations. I don't need a grand event. Khalid's smile softened. I want what makes you happy. A simple, beautiful wedding, with the people who matter most. Amina looked into his eyes, feeling the sincerity behind his words. That sounds perfect. As long as it's real, as long as it's about our love, I don't care about anything else. For the first time in a long while, Amina felt a sense of clarity. She had been so focused on fitting into Khalid's world, on meeting the expectations placed on her, that she hadn't taken a moment to just breathe and think about what she wanted. And what she wanted was simple: to marry the man she loved, to start a life together, no matter what the world thought of them. Khalid reached over, taking her hand in his. You're incredible, Amina. I'm lucky to have you. Amina smiled, squeezing his hand. I'm the lucky one. Just then, Khalid's assistant knocked on the door, interrupting their moment. She entered with a stack of papers in her hands, and Amina couldn't help but feel like a small intruder in Khalid's world again. But he didn't let go of her hand, and that small gesture reminded her that she wasn't just a visitor in his life. She was a part of it, and that was enough. The next few days seemed to pass in a blur of planning, decisions, and phone calls. Amina found herself caught in a whirlwind of wedding details, dress fittings, venue arrangements, guest lists. It was all so overwhelming, yet Khalid was there every step of the way, guiding her, reassuring her, and making sure she felt supported. She had never imagined a wedding like this, but the more they worked together, the more she realized how much she was ready for this next chapter of their lives. Despite the whirlwind, there was one thing that constantly weighed on Amina's mind: the lingering disapproval from Khalid's family. His father had reluctantly accepted her, but his mother remained distant, cold even, as if she were waiting for Amina to slip up. The thought of their judgment gnawed at her, but Khalid reassured her time and time again that their opinions didn't matter. She was his choice, and that was all that mattered. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider in his world. One evening, just a week before their wedding, Khalid invited her to a quiet dinner at his penthouse. He had planned something special for the two of them, just a night to relax and enjoy each other's company before the big day. Amina walked into his penthouse, the dim lighting casting a romantic glow across the room. The table was set for two, with candles flickering softly in the center. It felt like the world outside had faded away, and there was only Khalid and her, alone in their little bubble. "I'm glad you're here," Khalid said, his voice warm as he pulled out her chair for her. "I thought we could use some time to just be together. No distractions, no wedding details. Just us." Amina smiled, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease as she sat down. "I've been so caught up in everything lately. This is exactly what I needed." The evening unfolded like a dream, soft music in the background, laughter, and meaningful conversation. They talked about everything and nothing: childhood memories, future dreams, and the little things that made them who they were. Amina found herself relaxing, forgetting about the looming pressure of the wedding, and focusing on the man in front of her. As the evening drew to a close, Khalid stood up and walked over to the side table, where a small velvet box sat waiting. Amina's heart skipped a beat as he picked it up and returned to her side, kneeling down in front of her. "Amina," he said softly, his voice sincere, "this is it. We've faced so much already, and I know there's more to come. But I want you to know, with all my heart, that you are the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. Will you marry me?" Amina's breath caught in her throat. The words felt like a dream, but they were real. This moment, this man, he was everything she had ever wanted, and more. Tears welled up in her eyes as she reached for his hand. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, Khalid, I will marry you." Khalid's eyes shone with joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger, the diamond sparkling in the soft light. He kissed her hand gently, his lips warm and tender. "I love you, Amina," he murmured against her skin. Amina's heart swelled with the fullness of the moment. She loved him, too, more than she had ever thought possible. Despite the uncertainties, despite the judgments, they had made it this far. They had fought for their love, and now, they were ready to take the next step together. As they sat together, wrapped in each other's arms, Amina knew that this was just the beginning of their journey. There would be challenges ahead, but they would face them side by side, stronger than ever before. The days leading up to the wedding were a blur of excitement, anticipation, and, for Amina, a growing sense of nervousness. The date was fast approaching, and with it, the enormity of the commitment she was about to make. She had never imagined her life would take such a turn, that she would go from struggling to make ends meet to marrying one of the wealthiest men in the city. It was a fairy tale, but with the fairy tale came a lot of pressure. Khalid, ever the steady presence in her life, continued to reassure her, reminding her that they were a team. He made every effort to ease her nerves, taking her out on quiet dates, helping with last-minute wedding preparations, and constantly reminding her of how much he loved her. But the doubts still lingered, particularly about the judgment from his family. His mother remained distant, even colder than before, and Amina couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't truly accepted. Despite her reservations, Amina focused on the joy of the day itself. It was their day, a day to celebrate their love, their commitment to each other. It didn't matter what anyone else thought. As Khalid had said, they were in this together. The morning of the wedding arrived, and Amina stood in front of the mirror, her reflection a mixture of nerves and excitement. The dress was everything she had dreamed of, simple, elegant, and perfect for her. It hugged her body in all the right places, and the intricate lace and delicate fabric made her feel like she was stepping into a dream. Her maid of honor, Layla, was by her side, helping with the final touches. Layla smiled at her, her expression soft and encouraging. "You look amazing, Amina," Layla said, adjusting the veil gently. "Khalid is going to lose his mind when he sees you." Amina chuckled, her nerves easing slightly. I hope I'm not too much of a distraction for him. You're exactly what he's always wanted, Layla replied. I can see it in the way he looks at you. You're his heart, Amina. Don't ever forget that. Amina nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest at Layla's words. As much as she had struggled to fit in with Khalid's world, this moment reminded her that she was there for a reason. She was the woman he loved, and that was enough. The ceremony was held in a beautiful, grand hall, adorned with flowers and soft lighting. It was everything Amina had hoped for, elegant, romantic, and filled with the people who mattered most. Khalid's family had arrived, and though there was still an air of tension, his father had made an effort to show up, his usual sternness softened just a touch. His mother, however, remained distant, her disapproval barely concealed behind a polite smile. But Amina didn't let that dampen her spirits. She walked down the aisle toward Khalid, her heart racing, but the moment she saw him standing there, waiting for her, all her doubts seemed to fade. There was no one else. This was it, her moment with him, the man who had changed her life. As she reached the altar, Khalid's eyes locked with hers, and for a brief moment, it felt like time stood still. His smile was warm, full of love, and in that smile, Amina saw everything she needed to see. He wasn't just the powerful CEO or the son of a wealthy family. He was the man she had fallen in love with, the man who had fought for her, for them. The ceremony was beautiful, simple, and filled with meaning. The vows they exchanged were heartfelt and raw, each word spoken with conviction and love. When it was time to seal their vows with a kiss, Khalid leaned in, his lips brushing against hers softly, as if to say, "This is just the beginning." The reception was a blend of elegance and joy, filled with dancing, laughter, and heartfelt speeches. Amina couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the love surrounding them. Despite the undercurrent of tension from Khalid's family, the evening was everything she had hoped for, celebratory, intimate, and perfect in its own way. As the night drew to a close, Khalid took her hand, leading her to the balcony overlooking the city. The lights of the city twinkled below them, and the cool evening breeze seemed to carry away all the weight of the day's emotions. "We did it," Khalid said softly, his voice full of satisfaction. "We're married, Amina. Nothing else matters." Amina smiled, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in weeks. "I can't believe it's finally here. I'm just glad it's with you." Khalid pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her as they stood in silence, taking in the moment. "I love you, Amina," he whispered, his lips brushing against her hair. "I love you too, Khalid," she replied, her heart full. For the first time in a long time, Amina truly believed that they could face whatever came their way. Together, they were unstoppable. The weeks following their wedding were filled with a new sense of purpose. Amina and Khalid settled into their married life, learning to navigate the intricacies of their different worlds, but this time, it felt different. There was no pressure to prove themselves to anyone but each other. They were partners, equals, facing everything together, and that made all the difference. Khalid's family, particularly his mother, remained distant, but Amina had learned not to let it define her. She had made her peace with it. The relationship with his father, though still somewhat strained, had softened, and Khalid's occasional talks with him seemed to ease the tension. There were no illusions, they still had a long way to go, but for now, they had each other, and that was enough. One afternoon, as Amina walked through the city with Khalid, the weight of their responsibilities seemed a little lighter. They were still a couple trying to figure things out, but for the first time in her life, Amina felt like she truly belonged. She was no longer the girl from a small neighborhood trying to fit into a world of wealth and power. She was Amina al-Farsi, a woman who had chosen to embrace her love for the man by her side, and in doing so, had embraced a world she never thought she could be part of. As they strolled hand in hand, Khalid's arm around her waist, Amina looked up at him, her heart swelling with affection. "You know," she said with a playful grin, "I still can't believe we're married. Sometimes it feels like a dream." Khalid chuckled, his hand tightening around hers. "It feels like a dream to me too, but I wouldn't want to wake up." Amina's smile softened as she looked into his eyes. "I never imagined my life would be like this. I've been through so much, but I didn't know love like this existed." Khalid stopped walking for a moment, pulling her gently toward him. "Amina," he said, his voice serious, "you're the most important thing in my life. You've made me see the world in a way I never did before. You've made me want to be a better man. And I don't just mean in business, I mean in life. I'm a better person because of you." Tears welled up in Amina's eyes as she blinked them away. "Khalid," she whispered, "I never thought I could be part of something so beautiful, something so real. But with you, I believe in it. I believe in us." Khalid gently wiped a tear from her cheek, his thumb grazing her skin in the most tender way. We've been through a lot, Amina. And we'll face whatever comes next, together. But one thing I know for sure is that I'm never letting go of you. Amina felt her heart swell at his words. She had always been afraid that love wouldn't be enough to bridge the gap between their worlds. But standing here, with Khalid by her side, she realized that love wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice. And they had both chosen each other. As they continued walking through the streets, the weight of the world no longer felt so heavy. There were still challenges ahead, family dynamics to navigate, a future to build, but Amina knew that as long as they had each other, they could face anything. With a final squeeze of his hand, Amina leaned in to kiss Khalid, feeling the connection between them deepening in a way she couldn't explain. This was their story. A love story that had started by accident but was now unfolding into something beautiful, something lasting. And as the city lights twinkled around them, Amina felt a sense of peace settle in her heart. Their journey together had only just begun, but she was ready to face it, step by step, hand in hand with the man she loved.